You know that feeling when you find an old movie you've never heard of, and it turns out to be amazing? Suddenly you're wondering, how did no one tell me about this? Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. I've got 20 movies from the 1970s that most people forgot about, but they're still just as powerful, entertaining, and worth watching today. The 70s were packed with legendary films, sure, but for every blockbuster, there were a dozen others that got overlooked. These are the ones that slipped through the cracks. The ones that took risks, told bold stories, and still hold up better than half the stuff we get now. If you think you've seen everything great from the 70s, you're about to be proven wrong, in the best way. The Deer Hunter, 1978. 3 friends go to war, and only parts of them come back. At first, it's all celebration. Steelworkers in a tight-knit town, drinking, laughing, singing before one last hunting trip. But the war is waiting. And when it comes, the Deer Hunter doesn't flinch. It shows you the before, the after, and the emotional wreckage in between. 3 men go to Vietnam. What comes back is broken, scattered, barely recognizable. Robert De Niro plays a man trying to hold on to some sense of meaning, even as everything he knew starts slipping away. Christopher Walken gives a performance that feels like a slow-motion collapse, haunting, tragic, impossible to look away from. This isn't a war movie in the traditional sense. It's quieter, sadder, more personal, and that's what makes it so devastating. The infamous Russian roulette scenes? They're brutal, but the real pain comes later, in the silences, in the stares, in the way people don't talk about what they've been through. The Deer Hunter is long. It's slow, but every minute matters. It's one of the most emotionally heavy films of the 70s, and somehow, it's still overlooked. This is cinema that stays with you like a scar. American Graffiti, 1973. One Night for Stories and the End of Innocence.
Hey, you're supposed to be the fast thing in the valley, man, but that can't be your car. It must be your mama's car.
Before Star Wars, George Lucas gave us something smaller, but in many ways, just as powerful. American Graffiti is set over a single night in 1962, in a world filled with fast cars, neon diners, and rock and roll echoing from every radio. But underneath the cruising and the jokes, there's something else, a quiet, creeping awareness that everything is about to change. For teenagers drift through that last night of summer, deciding whether to stay, to go, to grow up, or just hold on a little longer. It's nostalgic, sure, but not in a fake, rose-colored way. It's honest, messy, real. The characters don't all get perfect endings. Some barely get answers. And that's what makes it unforgettable. Lucas captured something timeless here, that strange, electric space between youth and adulthood, between the way things were and the way they'll never be again. The music, the cars, the awkward romances, it all adds up to a film that feels like a memory you forgot you had. It's one of the most heartfelt, personal films of the 70s, and today, it's rarely talked about. But if you grew up, you'll feel this one in your bones. Alien, 1979. In space, no one can hear you dread. By the end of the 1970s, sci-fi was riding high on optimism, bright futures, chosen heroes, space adventures. Alien came in and ripped all that wide open. This wasn't about exploration. This was survival. Cold, terrifying, lonely survival. A commercial spaceship crew, stuck in deep space, answers a distress call and brings something back. Something that doesn't belong. What starts as slow, almost boring, becomes unbearable in its tension. The ship is quiet. The corridors are tight. The lights flicker. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows, something is hunting. Ridley Scott directs it like a horror movie, wearing sci-fi clothes, and it works. Every corner of the ship feels unsafe. Every breath is a warning. And then there's Ripley. Sigourney Weaver's performance doesn't scream for attention. It earns it slowly, scene by scene, until she becomes one of the most iconic leads in cinema. Alien is often remembered for its creature. And yes, the design is terrifying. But the real brilliance is the mood, the pacing, the isolation. It's not just a monster movie, it's a slow-burn nightmare that hasn't aged a day. Somehow, it's rarely rewatched outside horror circles. But it deserves to be. Because once you feel that creeping dread, you never forget it. Superman, 1978. Before the superhero boom, there was just one man who could fly. Long before shared universes and multiverse cameos, there was Superman. A movie that dared to take a comic book hero seriously and pulled it off with heart, wonder, and absolute sincerity. No cynicism, no winks, just a pure belief that a man could fly and that the world needed him. Christopher Reeve doesn't just play Superman, he becomes him. Honest, kind, almost impossibly good, but never boring. He shifts effortlessly between the awkward charm of Clark Kent and the quiet strength of the Man of Steel. And somehow, you believe it every second. The effects were groundbreaking at the time. The John Williams score? Instantly legendary. But it's the spirit of the film that makes it unforgettable. There's a magic here that modern superhero movies often miss, a simplicity that feels almost radical today. A hero who doesn't brood, who doesn't question whether the world is worth saving. He just does it. Not for glory, not for vengeance, just because it's the right thing to do. Superman was the blueprint. And while the genre exploded decades later, this film still stands taller than most. Somehow, it's been overshadowed, but make no mistake, this is where the legend really began. Network, 1976. The madman on TV was the only one telling the truth.
Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job.
It starts with a man breaking down on live television. Not off camera, not backstage. Live. He looks straight into the lens and says what no one else will. He's not crazy, he's just done pretending. And somehow the audience loves it. They tune in. The ratings soar. And what follows is one of the sharpest, most vicious takedowns of media and capitalism ever put on screen. Network is satire, but just barely. Because almost everything it warned us about, the commercialization of news, outrage as entertainment, truth twisted into product, all of it came true. And that's what makes the film so unnerving to watch now. It feels less like fiction and more like a prophecy. Peter Finch is electric as the unhinged anchor, delivering one of the most famous monologues in movie history, the kind that still gives chills. But every performance here is razor sharp. Every scene pulses with anger, clarity, and pitch-black humor. Director Sidney Lumet pulls no punches, and writer Paddy Chayefsky's script feels like it's burning through the screen. Somehow, Network is rarely mentioned alongside the cinematic giants of the 70s. But make no mistake, it's one of the smartest, boldest, most relevant films of its time. And maybe even more relevant now. Dirty Harry, 1971, when justice gets tired of waiting.
You lift that hand once more, and I won't let you know where the girl is.
San Francisco is bleeding. The city's frozen in fear. A sniper is killing at random, and the system, as always, is too slow, too cautious, too tied up in its own rules. That's when Inspector Harry Callahan walks in. Gun in hand. No apologies. No time for red tape. He's not interested in courtroom speeches. He wants results. And he's willing to get his hands dirty. Dirty Harry introduced a new kind of cop to American cinema, the antihero. Clint Eastwood doesn't say much, but when he does, it cuts like a knife. His iconic lines are etched into pop culture, but beneath the cool delivery is something more dangerous and more complicated. This isn't just about good guys and bad guys. It's about how far someone can go before justice becomes personal, and maybe even toxic. The film caused controversy when it came out. It challenged viewers. Was Harry a hero, or just another kind of threat? That question still lingers. The tension, the grit, the moral ambiguity, it all helped define the crime thriller for decades to come. And while newer films may have borrowed the attitude, none of them captured the raw punch of the original. Dirty Harry isn't just a movie. It's a challenge, one that still hits just as hard today. The French Connection, 1971. 2 cops, 1 case, and the greatest chase ever filmed.
You want to take a ride there, fat man?
Oh, bullshit.
New York City in the early 70s wasn't polished. It was gritty, cold, dangerous, and the French Connection lives in that grime. This is street-level crime storytelling with no gloss, no sentimentality. Just obsession, frustration, and a case that never lets up. 2 detectives, 1 quiet, 1 unhinged, stumble onto what looks like a routine drug bust and uncover an international smuggling operation far bigger than anyone imagined. Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle is not your typical hero. He's rude, reckless, and refuses to back down. He's chasing more than criminals. He's chasing control in a city that's slipping through his fingers. And the more the case resists, the deeper he dives. What makes The French Connection unforgettable isn't just the story, it's the style. Gritty handheld camera work, minimal music, and a tension that builds like a fuse burning down. And then there's the car chase. Raw, chaotic, no CGI, no second chances. Just real cars, real streets, and a real train Doyle is desperate to catch. It's still one of the most jaw-dropping sequences ever filmed. This movie won Best Picture, and somehow people barely talk about it today. But it's one of the most intense, grounded, and influential crime films of the 70s. If you like your thrillers fast, dirty, and real, this is the one you've been missing. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977. The truth isn't out there. It's calling you home. It starts with a light in the sky, just a flash. Then a noise, a feeling, something impossible to explain. And suddenly, an ordinary man can't sleep, can't think, can't function, because something inside him knows they're coming. But this isn't an invasion movie. This is something stranger, softer, more beautiful. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is about curiosity, obsession, and the quiet, aching hope that we're not alone, and that maybe, just maybe, that's a good thing. Steven Spielberg took a genre known for fear and flipped it into wonder. The aliens aren't monsters. They're not villains. They're a mystery, and that's what makes the story so human. Richard Dreyfuss plays a man unraveling in the best way, chasing a vision he doesn't understand, building mountains out of mashed potatoes, trying to make sense of a message he feels in his bones. And as crazy as it sounds, you go with him. The sound design is unforgettable. The lights, the music, the final sequence, it all feels like a dream you're barely holding on to. Close Encounters didn't need lasers or explosions to make you feel small. It just needed a melody. In the age of loud sci-fi, this film is quiet, sincere, and deeply emotional. A forgotten kind of story, not about conquering the stars, but about being invited into them. The Exorcist, 1973. Evil doesn't knock. It crawls in slowly.
God! In the name of the Father and of the Son!
There's a reason people still whisper about this film. Not because of jump scares or gore, but because The Exorcist makes you feel like something is truly, deeply wrong. It doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in. A flicker of sound in the attic. A shift in a child's voice. A cold breath where there shouldn't be one. It starts slow, almost quiet, and then it drags you into hell. What makes it terrifying isn't just the possession, it's how grounded everything feels. The setting is ordinary. The people are real. A mother trying to help her daughter, doctors running tests, priests struggling with faith. And then the unexplainable. Director William Friedkin doesn't rely on tricks. He builds dread like a slow heartbeat, inch by inch, until you're practically begging for a release. When the horror finally erupts, it's not just scary, it's overwhelming. The makeup, the sound, the voice, everything is designed to shake you. And somehow, it still works today. No cheap thrills, no safety net, just pure, unfiltered fear. The Exorcist became a cultural phenomenon when it was released, but over time, it's been boxed in as just another horror movie. It's not. It's a cinematic gut punch about faith, darkness, and the terrifying idea that something ancient still watches us and waits. Chinatown, 1974. Everyone's lying, and the truth is worse than you think.
So wait a second, Duffy. You're always in such a hurry.
The sun's always shining in Chinatown, but don't let the light fool you. This is one of the darkest stories ever told. A private investigator takes what looks like a simple case, a cheating husband, a suspicious wife. But step by step, clue by clue, it all unravels into something far more corrupt, far more dangerous, and far more personal than he ever expected. Jack Nicholson plays J.J. Jeet, a smart-mouthed PI who thinks he's seen it all. But nothing prepares him for the rot hiding behind the wealth and glamour of 1930s Los Angeles. Water rights, political power, family secrets. This isn't just noir, it's noir at its bleakest. Every answer leads to a worse question. Every truth is dirtier than the last. And by the time you realize what's really going on, it's already too late. Roman Polanski's direction is razor-sharp. The atmosphere is thick. The dialogue is cold and biting. And that ending, it doesn't just sting, it stays. Chinatown doesn't just flirt with darkness, it lives there. And in a decade full of revolutionary filmmaking, this one still stands as one of the most devastating and tightly crafted films ever made. If you think you know where it's going, trust me, you don't. Saturday Night Fever, 1977. Under the disco lights, one kid danced like his life depended on it.
Watch this. This ain't my regular partner, but just see.
You hear the beat before you see the shoes. Platform soles hit the pavement, hips swinging in rhythm, a paint can in one hand, an attitude in every step. Saturday Night Fever isn't just about disco, it's about escape. For Tony Manero, a 20-something stuck in a dead-end life in Brooklyn, the dance floor is the only place that makes sense. It's where he becomes someone. It's where he matters. John Travolta turns what could have been a shallow role into something electric, charming, angry, desperate, alive. His moves are iconic, but it's the way he carries all that frustration and hope in his body that makes it unforgettable. Behind the glitz and BG soundtrack is a story that's surprisingly raw. It's about identity, class, broken families, and trying to be somebody when everything around you tells you you're nothing. The film captured the spirit of the late 70s, the heat, the style, the swagger, but also the sadness just beneath the surface. It's not just a dance movie. It's a coming-of-age film disguised in sequins. And over time, that depth has been overlooked. But make no mistake, Saturday Night Fever is more than its soundtrack. It's a punch to the gut wrapped in a dance beat. And it still moves. Grease, 1978. Summer love fades, but the cool never does.
What are you doing here?
Somewhere between high school fantasy and rock and roll rebellion, Grease found the perfect formula. Catchy songs, slick hair, fast cars, and a whole lot of attitude. It opens with a sweet summer romance, but by the time school starts again, everything's changed. Greasers, beauty school dropouts, drag races, and dance contests. It's a wild ride through a version of the 50s that never really existed, but somehow feels more real than the one that did. John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John have chemistry that practically glows. Danny and Sandy are total opposites, but their push and pull between who they were and who they're trying to be still hits home. Because Grease isn't just about love. It's about image, identity, and that awkward moment when you realize growing up means choosing which version of yourself you're willing to fight for. And the music. Still untouchable. Greased Lightning, You're the One That I Want, hopelessly devoted to you. Every track a hit, every number burned into pop culture. But over time, the film's been written off as kitschy fun. What gets missed is how sharp, how bold, and how weirdly honest it really is under the polish. Grease is loud, fast, and endlessly quotable, but it also captures something real about the chaos of adolescence. That's why it's never really gone out of style. Taxi Driver, 1976. In a city that never sleeps, one man stops trying to fit in.
Because I think that you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
It's 3 a.m. The streets are wet. Neon lights smear across the windshield. And behind the wheel is Travis Bickle, a man slowly coming apart in a city that's already lost its soul. Taxi Driver isn't about action. It's about isolation. About the quiet horror of watching someone slip through the cracks and start believing that violence might be the only way to be seen. Robert De Niro gives a performance that's as cold as it is tragic. He's not some explosive vigilante. He's quiet, awkward, invisible, and that's what makes it terrifying. Because you understand him, even when you don't want to. You watch him unravel night after night, shift after shift, through a New York that feels more like a fever dream than a city. Garbage piles up. People shout in the distance. Nothing feels clean. Martin Scorsese doesn't just direct this film, he injects it with a pulse. Every scene is steeped in tension, in paranoia, in that sticky unease that something bad is coming and no one's paying attention. And when it finally does explode, it's not cathartic. It's disturbing. Taxi Driver was never meant to be comfortable. It's not the kind of movie you finish and forget. It lingers. It festers. And in a decade full of groundbreaking cinema, this one dared to look straight into the abyss and not blink. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975. In place designed to break you, one man refuses to bow.
You want to watch baseball? Just raise that hand up.
The walls are clean. The halls are quiet. But One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest isn't about peace. It's about control. Inside a mental institution, where order is more important than healing, one man walks in and throws the whole system off balance. R.P. McMurphy doesn't belong there, or maybe he does. Either way, he's not playing by the rules. Jack Nicholson is magnetic, wild, defiant, hilarious one moment, heartbreaking the next. McMurphy isn't just fighting a nurse. He's fighting an entire system that crushes people for being different, loud, or simply human. And Nurse Ratched? She's not a cartoon villain. She's the cold face of quiet oppression, polite, calm, and absolutely ruthless. What makes the film so powerful isn't just the rebellion, it's the slow, creeping sense of what it costs. The friendships, the tiny moments of freedom, the laughter inside a place built to keep everyone quiet, it all adds up to something deeply human. And when the story turns, it hurts. You don't just feel the tragedy, you carry it. It won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Actress, a clean sweep. And yet somehow, it's not talked about nearly as much today. But this is one of the most emotional, soul-punching films of the 70s, and maybe ever. If you've forgotten it, it's time to remember. Apocalypse Now, 1979. The deeper you go, the less of yourself comes back. War movies usually show explosions, guns, glory or loss. Apocalypse Now shows something else, madness. It starts as a mission, a soldier sent upriver to eliminate a rogue officer. But every mile deeper into the jungle, the rules fall away, the uniforms blur, and reality starts to dissolve. This isn't just Vietnam, it's a descent into the human soul, and what happens when that soul is pushed past its limits. Martin Sheen plays a man haunted before he even leaves. Marlon Brando waits at the end of the river like a ghost, whispering poetry, shadowed in myth. And everything in between? Chaos, psychedelic horror, soldiers surfing in gunfire, a man holding a severed head and calling it reason. Francis Ford Coppola didn't just make a war film. He made a waking nightmare, shot in real jungles under real pressure that nearly broke the entire production. Apocalypse Now is long, confusing, hypnotic, but that's the point. It's not trying to give you answers. It's trying to infect you with the same fog of war that swallows its characters. By the end, you're not watching a mission, you're watching a transformation. And once you've seen it, you don't walk away clean. There are 100 Vietnam films. This is the one they all fear. Because this one doesn't flinch, and it never comes back. Rocky, 1976. He wasn't supposed to win. That wasn't the point.
Hello? Good morning, Mrs. Kramer. This is Don Cannon, WIBG Philadelphia.
There's no prophecy, no chosen one. Just a guy in Philly who gets up every morning, cracks a few eggs, and goes the distance because no one else believes he can. Rocky is the ultimate underdog story, not because he wins, but because he shows up. In a decade full of anti-heroes, violence, and moral collapse, here was something rare, a movie about heart. Sylvester Stallone wasn't a star. He wrote the script himself. He was Rocky, a small-time fighter with big dreams and a body full of bruises. What makes this film work isn't the boxing, it's the build-up. The loneliness, the small talk with the girl at the pet shop, the long runs through frozen streets. Every second of it feels real, earned, honest. And when that theme music kicks in, you don't just feel pumped, you feel something. Hope, determination, that belief that maybe, just maybe, showing up is enough. Rocky didn't need flashy effects or high drama. It just needed a man who refused to stay down. Over time, the sequels got louder, the gloves got bloodier, but nothing touches the quiet power of the original. This is a story for anyone who's ever been counted out and still stood up. Jaws, 1975. The ocean was never the same after this. It starts with a ripple, then a scream. And just like that, the beach becomes a place of terror. Jaws didn't just invent the summer blockbuster, it redefined fear itself. Steven Spielberg took a simple premise, a shark attacking a small coastal town, and turned it into one of the most suspenseful, nail-biting films in cinema history. Not with gore, not with speed, but with patience. The genius of Jaws is in what it doesn't show. The shark doesn't fully appear until more than halfway through the film, and by then, you're already afraid to go near water. The tension builds in every note of that now legendary score. 2 notes. That's all it takes. And suddenly, you're scanning every wave for something lurking beneath. But what really makes Jaws unforgettable is its characters. A police chief afraid of the sea, a grizzled shark hunter with scars and stories, a marine biologist caught in the middle, 3 men on a boat against nature, fear, and each other. Their chemistry turns a monster movie into something deeper, a battle not just for survival, but for control over fear itself. People think of Jaws as a thriller, but it's also a masterclass in restraint, tension, and storytelling. It didn't just scare a generation out of the water. It changed how movies were made. And somehow, even now, it still bites. Star Wars, A New Hope, 1977, before the Empire, before the legacy.
As if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
It was just a hope. No one saw it coming. Not the studio, not the critics, maybe not even George Lucas himself. But when Star Wars hit theaters in 1977, it didn't just succeed, it exploded. It wasn't just another sci-fi flick. It was mythology, a fairy tale in space, a story of rebellion, destiny, and light versus darkness, told with more imagination than anyone had ever dared to put on screen. Before the franchise, the merch, and the billion-dollar empire, there was just this, a farm boy staring at twin sons, dreaming of something more. That image alone is cinema magic. Luke, Leia, Han Vader, they weren't just characters. They were archetypes, instantly unforgettable, woven into pop culture forever. And the world building, nothing had ever come close. Every planet, every alien, every worn-out ship felt lived in, like it had a story all its own. What makes A New Hope special isn't just what started, it's how complete it is. You could watch this one film and feel like you've seen an entire galaxy's worth of emotion, action, and wonder. And the score, John Williams' soaring, sweeping themes, it's not just background. It's the soul of the film. It's easy to take Star Wars for granted now, buried under decades of sequels, spin-offs, and discourse. But this first film? It was lightning in a bottle. Pure adventure, pure escape, and still one of the most important movies ever made. The Godfather Part 2, 1974, power isn't given. It's taken at a cost you'll never see coming.
Well, that's pop talking.
You're goddamn right, that's pop talk.
How do you follow up a masterpiece? By going deeper. The Godfather Part 2 doesn't just continue the story, it expands it, darkens it, and dares to show what happens after the crown is passed. This isn't a sequel. It's a tragedy disguised as a crime saga. And it's arguably the only sequel in history that stands toe-to-toe with, or even surpasses, the original. We see Michael Corleone at the height of his power, but this time it's different. Colder, lonelier. He's no longer earning respect. He's losing pieces of himself trying to hold on to it. Every decision isolates him. Every betrayal leaves a deeper scar. And Al Pacino, with barely a raised voice, delivers one of the most haunting performances ever put on film. Watch his eyes, that's where the movie lives. Then there's the past, Robert De Niro as a young Vito Corleone, building the empire brick by brick. The contrast is genius, one man rising with purpose, the other sinking under the weight of his own throne. The structure alone was groundbreaking. The emotion, devastating. The Godfather Part 2 isn't about the mob. It's about family, legacy. What happens when you sacrifice everything to protect something and end up destroying it anyway. It's heavy, unforgiving, and still as powerful as it was in 1974. Not just one of the best sequels ever made, one of the best films of all time. The Godfather, 1972, the family business was never just business.
Don't ask me about my business.
No.
There are films, and then there's The Godfather. A story so rich, so perfectly constructed, it doesn't feel like you're watching fiction. It feels like history. This isn't just a crime film. It's about loyalty, legacy, the quiet horror of power passed from one hand to another. It begins in shadows at a wedding with whispers and favors, and by the end, it's about the slow transformation of a man who never wanted the crown, but wears it all the same. Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone is iconic, but it's Al Pacino's performance as Michael that defines the movie. He starts off distant, clean, a war hero, not part of the family business. But watch his face in every scene. Watch how it hardens. How his silence becomes more dangerous than words. The Godfather isn't about action, it's about control. The way men hold power with a look, with a pause, with a favor that can never be repaid. Francis Ford Coppola built a world that feels mythic and real at the same time. The dialogue is legendary. The cinematography is like oil painting. The pacing? Slow, deliberate, and absolutely gripping. Every frame has weight. Every decision has consequence. It's strange to call The Godfather forgotten. It's often named the greatest film ever made. And yet, many younger generations haven't truly seen it. Haven't felt the dread in that final door slowly closing. This isn't just a movie. It's a legacy, and it's more relevant than ever. The 1970s weren't just a decade of film, they were a revolution. A time when directors took risks, stories punched harder, and characters didn't always get happy endings. These movies weren't made for algorithms or opening weekend numbers. They were made with guts, heart, and vision. Some of them became legends. Others slipped through the cracks. But every film on this list still hits, still matters. And if even one of them made you want to hit play, then the past just came roaring back to life. So if you love cinema that challenges you, stories that take their time, that burn slow and stay with you, don't just scroll past. Hit subscribe. We've got more lost classics to uncover, more underrated gems to resurrect, and more reasons to fall in love with film all over again. And hey, drop your favorite forgotten 70s movie in the comments. Let's build the list together. Because some stories never really go away. They just wait for someone to press play.